Hey there, adventurers. Welcome to Alt Roll Discord. Discord where we teach new players and DMs how to navigate this wild world of Dungeons and Dragons. Today, we've got a fantastic panel. Folks, we're going to be diving into the big, exciting, often controversial topic of AI generated content in tabletop games. But today, we're going to be discussing how game masters and players can use AI generated content, but while also maintaining group trust and immersion and emphasizing best practices and transparency and ethical considerations to the best extent to ensure that AI use enhances the game experience and doesn't destroy it. So, the goal of this panel is to explore its impact on games, not to argue for or against AI. So, please keep the conversation respectful and on topic. And I just want to put up front, and I hope that we won't need to. But we do understand that AI use is not everyone's preference, and there may be differing opinions on its role in the game. And again, this panel is meant to explore it as a tool, not to advocate for it, but also to encourage respectful and constructive use of it. So, if you disagree with content or opinion shared, if you're in the audience, we just ask that you keep feedback focused on the topic and please be respectful for all attendees. But without further ado, I'm your host, DarkJester89, head instructor here for Alt Roll. And I'm just going to go around and have the panelists introduce themselves. And in the order that they talk, at least how I see them on screen, it's going to be Solomon, Maya, and Kevin. And I'll just kind of go in that order of asking you the questions. Solomon, if you want to start a little bit about your history as a GM and maybe a little bit about how you use AI.
Man, of course I gotta go first.
Yep.
Put the shy one on first.
Yep.
That's all right. Well, I'll start with an introduction of who I am. Solomon Lantzy, obviously. I use my real name as my Discord name because I'm either brave or stupid, somewhere in between. I have been running games for a long time since I was fairly little. I think I started when I was 8. It was the first time I ever ran a D&D game. It wasn't very good, but we start somewhere. I recently got into using AI in my games, like maybe about 2 years ago. I started very limitedly. I didn't go too much into it, but now I've used it for quite a few things. I've been like experimenting with possibly as a fun little gimmick, making like an AI controlled party member as like the pet NPC. I thought it'd be pretty funny.
And how did that end up going?
I'm still working on it. It's not complete yet.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you coming to the panel today. Maya, if you want to go next.
Yeah, my name is Maya. I found the TTRPGs only in 2023, so I've only been here a couple years. But since then, because I can get obsessive with things, I've tried 37 systems at this point. I no longer personally play D&D and Pathfinder, but I do heavily lean now towards very kind of character-driven storytelling, emotional role play, immersive, like world building, and very like narrative-focused games and like high role play and stuff like that. I am loving what the indie RPG space is doing these days, and so I'm heavily in that space. I have a lot of actual play content that I have produced and that I have ran, and using AI as like a note prepping like helper tool is something that has been invaluable. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And welcome. Thanks.
Yeah.
And last, we got Kevin. And then after intros are done, we're going to start with our questions. But Kevin, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I started with the blue box or the expert set, so I've been playing around for a long time. Took a long break in between, so I played expert first edition, second edition, then took a 20, 30-year hiatus, and then picked up 5e, kind of 2020 during COVID. Uh, that said, I've GM'd or DM'd 200 sessions at this point. I'm probably the least techie of the panelists up here. Based on what I've heard thus far,
Yeah.
I use AI basically from a text-based access point, helping me to flesh out room descriptions, NPC characters and then taking my dialogue or inputs as characterizations of the items and stuff. So I usually search online first if I'm looking for something, and then if I can't find it, my last resort is AI. So I do incorporate it in my games, but I'm not a heavy user.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today. So, getting into the breadth of it, we're going to have about 3 general topics. So, first is going to be defining AI. Like,
Yeah.
what can we use in, like, how can we use it in tabletop gaming? How can a GM use it? How can a player use it? Second section is going to be role of transparency of how uh, content potentially impacting the experience and immersion, building player trust and expectations. And then the last topic is going to be moderating it, like how to, when you should, like when it could be used, maybe some lines and some focus to draw of like, hey, this is, we're using it too much. So we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But first, Solomon, I'm going to direct it to you. So we have like types of AI content. We have visuals, so like AI generated character art, scene art, item art, narrative, maybe generating scripts. What's something that you've seen AI use to generate comic that's being used in games today?
Definitely all of the above. In some cases, there'll be more of one aspect of AI or less of it. One of the most common ones that you can find in my games, and I think any other games I've played, is obviously token art and like general art for like magic items, like you said. That seems to be the most common one. I use that quite often, typically when I'm too lazy to draw it myself, is usually how I do it. And so I use it for like that, that one random commenter that the party decides to adopt, then it's there. But I have no idea what this person looks like. So yap some words at either ChatGPT or Midjourney and be like, okay, this looks like a reasonably interesting enough character. Slap it in a token generator, put it on the battle map. Here's Bob.
Bob the Goblin. Maya, what about you?
How have I seen it in the TTRPG space?
Yeah, maybe because like we probably all seen like character art, maybe
Yeah.
magic item art. Is there anything unique that you may have seen that maybe we haven't seen?
Uh, no, I think AI is advancing quickly, but I think in the TTRPG space, it's kind of like the same stuff. I think we'll all see. It's like, yeah, the token art or character art, maybe generating a scene. If you're not having like, because there's thousands of maps out there in Map Maker, so I never generate that because I'd rather support someone who's making really cool maps. But if for like tactical stuff, but sometimes I've seen people do like background scenes for like the role play part of the session. If they're in a specific spot in the world. So I've seen that, but nothing too crazy. It's kind of those usual things, magic items, stuff like that.
Nice. And
Yeah.
Kevin, what about you?
I think I'd echo a lot of the same commentary. What I think AI does do well is push the ability to create individually. So my players, for example, have historically used Hero Forge to create their own character tokens and sent me the image. And a few of my players have transitioned to use AI, and seeing the evolution in terms of their tokens sent to me, I was like, well, maybe I'll give this a try. I usually look online for images for magic items. I was actually looking for a katana the other day and couldn't find anything great. Uh, Tried the Chat GPT option to create a few different ideas, and then still kind of ended up on something that I had seen online. So, I think it's democratizing, if you want to call that a word, the use of technology to even, I'm going to use the term old fogies like myself, who can't draw and think stick figures are sophisticated art, or my players who are, they're also not super techy, but very enthusiastic and with kind of like a uh, determination can create an image of what they envision their character as down to his attire and accoutrements that he may be using as a cleric, for example.
Nice. And so now that we've established general some notes I had, and this is going to be digging into the next sections. Solomon, for coming back to the top of initiative, um, how as a game master have you implemented some of these tools? Like what are some things how you've used AI?
I'm at a slight loss for how I should best explain all this. I've done a lot with it. I can say that. You had brought up monster stat blocks. I think I did that once, and it was for a Shadowrun game. But I was honestly surprised at how well versed ChatGPT was with the Shadowrun rule set, as it created a pretty solid stat block for this psychic magic tech monster thing. It was pretty neat. But what I really use AI for the most is I use it as a third party observer to my writing and as a note tracker mostly.
Yeah.
And when I say third party observer, what is it? Is he in the audience? I want to see. Yeah. Tal Maru made one that does this for a lot more than D&D, but I specifically order the Chat GPT to basically critique my writing and tell me if it's bad or if I've made a mistake that would like ruin the flow of the story. Like I brought up something that was like, "Hey, wait, it actually did this," in regards to that note keeper thing, where I feed it and tell it to remember the important story aspects, the important story points, and I can basically tell it, "Hey, what happened on this session?" It'll be like, "Oh yeah, you did this."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Very nice.
looking for plot holes,
Yeah,
because that can be a good, especially if you're like planning for the next session. Be like, what kind of cheese are these players going to do?
yeah,
Because like asking it from like literary, what's a literary plot hole, and then like okay for mechanical plot holes, what am I not considering? Oh, they're going to climb the stairs. Oh, I didn't even consider it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, great. So Maya, as a game master, how do you
Yeah.
use AI as a game master?
So, I heavily use Notebook LM, ChatGPT, and there's a new uh, software or website called GM Assistant. And because I do a lot of actual plays, or I just record my sessions personally, because it helps with, like Solomon was saying, and in remembering and lore and keeping everything in track. So I upload my audio, and then it gives me like a recap of the session, what happened. It lets me know which magic items were used or which NPCs were talked about the most, and kind of helps me organize in that sense. Notebook LM, I just give it all like my notes about how I'm prepping for a game, and ChatGPT notes about the players and the themes that we chose and the plot points that I built out. And then I'll just use that for prep and just be like, hey, I'm focusing on this character this session. What should we focus on? And then it'll be like, based on the goals that you wrote out in session 0, this would be like the best thing to do. Or, it gives suggestions like that. And it helps me prep and think about what I'm going to do for the upcoming session and things like that. So it's definitely like a time saver. It's not um it's not a shortcut per se, but it's helping me summarize lore, and it's helping me generate like NPC names and personalities and stuff like that, and or formatting timelines. It's just like all that kind of grunt work that is just super helpful. It's kind of like when the microwave was created and you could just put something in there and then have something heat up in a minute rather than using the oven or something like that. I don't know what people use before microwaves. But it's just like a really helpful tool. It helps organize my prep, helps save time. Um, and that's like the biggest way that I use it. Sometimes if I have a specific magic item, like super specific, like connected to somebody's backstory or the BBEG or something like that, I'll generate like a magic item image. But most of the time I'll just like go to Pinterest or something because there's images and art everywhere. So that's easy to find. Um, But yeah, it's mostly just helping me organize my prep. It's been so helpful.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, as somebody who remembers the origins of the microwave and the lore about fertility associated with it,
Oh
like
no.
we were always like turning away from it when we turned the microwave on. So just as a little bit of information there. Um,
Covered with a blanket.
Grandpa, what was it like before microwave?
Microwave floor is crazy.
yes.
Right, the
So
radiation, right, or something. I heard about it.
exactly. So I use it. I use Notebook LM.
Mhm.
I have a lot of PDFs, third-party PDFs that I bought from DM's Guild over the years that I just kind of upload up. That way, I don't remember all the specifics of each one, and I pick and choose according to that. It sounds like there's more sophisticated stuff you can do with it. I haven't gotten to that level yet. I still hand type my own notes, for example. I know I probably could do a recording, but I don't. My players don't generally feel like the recording type, and I like to keep the technology to a lower level, I guess, which is also why I haven't converted to Foundry besides my inaptitude with technology. Um, I do use it for a lot of descriptions, like I said, and I actually ran a chat GPT while we were the question was thrown out there for one of my adventures. There's a scene that Watsy didn't really provide a lot of details around or description of, and I said, just give me a description of the galley and the Dark Duchess, which is a frozen ship-bound pirate ship off the coasts of the Sea of Endless Ice. The first response came back and it was like a page and a half of text. The second one's a little bit briefer after I kind of said, use fewer words. Um, and I could use that as a description, read it to the players so they would get a much better sense than me just saying, hey, you're in the ship galley of the kitchen of Frozen Frigate. It includes details around points of interest. It actually did pull even the information about the location of the ship itself from the module without me uploading it. So it just looked online and pulled it out. I could probably just pull an image for that if I would needed to on top of that, but I don't need the map necessarily because I already have one from Watsy uploaded into Roll20. So it gives us a quick synopsis of something where I'd be like, oh yeah, there's a table here with like some broken frozen crockery spilled about, right? It gives a much more immersive experience. Um, I do find that I read it a little bit more, so I can. I don't know about if other DMs feel the same way, but like when I'm making something up, I have a harder time hamming it up a little bit as opposed to just reading a script. So I can give it a little bit more enthusiasm or counterpoint as part of my description of the rooms. It gives me more fully fleshed characters. I do believe a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's funny because I do also use Pinterest to pull images, and
Yeah.
it's like almost everything on Pinterest is AI at this point. Um, that's not to say that it's necessarily bad to use AI one way or the other. I do understand kind of the concerns people have about creator rights and
Yeah. Yeah.
other
Yeah.
things like that, or creativity of like even diminishing the DM's creativity. But I'm like, dude, you don't want to see me draw a dwarf, right? Like I get the beard. That's about the only extent of what I can do with it. But I
Yeah.
mean, it serves as kind of a so Chat GPT is my go-to, and it serves really as a counterpoint for like ideas on what I want to do and potentially giving me suggestions, right?
Yeah, it's like an endless co-DM.
Right. Like, so I needed this side quest, and I was just like, hey, give me a side quest for the Feywild for this character based on my notes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Solomon, what if I'm not a DM? What if I'm somebody who doesn't even know what the M stands for? Let's say I'm a player. Um, as a player, how could I use AI? Like, am I supposed to pull my phone out, say, "Hey AI, how do I make my wizard extra today?"
Well, kind of in a similar way to like Kevin was just saying, one of the first ones you can do is you can use it to help basically expand your descriptive dictionary. If you're like, I'm unsure how I describe my character doing this, or like Or maybe a better one would be, I want to make my backstory sound less like a run-on sentence, and make it much more fleshed. I am a perpetrator of that myself. I make a lot of characters that are just this long sentence spiel of da 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 da, you know, because I'm lazy. But it is good for expanding and fleshing out. And basically, maybe the best way of putting it is adding more descriptive filler in between your words to make it more interesting, more evocative, more immersive. So it can give like a better description of a table than I can. Granted, I have a problem where when I hype something up, I either hype it up too much or not enough. Um, it's very interesting when your party now becomes obsessed with a chair.
And what about you, Maya? How have you? And I understand that because you said that you don't play it too often or recently, but how maybe something that you've seen your players use AI creatively?
Oh, I still play. I'm currently in a game right now on Thursdays. Um, but yeah, so what I've done is when during session 0, I'm taking down I'm writing down all my notes like myself first. And it looks all crappy and everything's like I don't care if it's misspelled, grammar's off. And that is like paragraphs long of all the notes we're talking about, my character ideas, the connections with the other players. And then I will put that in like ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, organize this so that this makes sense," or something like that. Put it in different sections, make those connections for me. So that's me as a player. I'm just like, I take all the notes myself, everything that we talked about, and I'm like, organize this for me, and I'll use that to review now. So like, um, before a game, I'll look over those notes, or while I'm taking notes for like each session, I will also add that in. So I basically am just using it as like a second brain. It's like helping me remember what happened last session, and the notes that I took about what goals I want to do and where I want to go and stuff like that. So I would recommend that if you're a player, just like, yeah, take your notes as usual and then just feed it to the AI, whichever you use. And it's kind of just like your historian. And then you can go back and be like, hey, what happened in session 1? You can even ask for ideas about like, hey, what should I do next? Or, you might already know what you want to do and you write that down and you add it in. And so it's just super helpful in helping you remember what you need to. And I think it's important for players to prep as well and be ready for a session. So yeah, anything that can help you prep as a player, I highly
Nice.
recommend. Yeah.
Nice. And last but not least, Kevin. Um, and Kevin, after you get your question, we're going to hit the second section, and I'm actually going to reverse the role. So I'm going to start questions with you first. But as a player, or maybe as a DM, what you've seen your players use or how they use AI. Anything to add to what was previously discussed?
No, I think I would probably just add one specific thing, and like it's good for adding things you want to RP with as a tool. So not only like I gave them a character, I gave ChatGPT a character, gave it kind of skeleton of this what I wanted for a backstory, kind of naive sage, if you will, and it gave me ideas on how I wanted to role play about taking bad notes, for example, which I would never have thought of on my own, but became like a hilarious counterpoint to the adventure when I would be like, oh, I'd write it like the chat GPT suggested I write um, that she writes notes in her notebook incorrectly. So I was like, oh, it's a white dragon. My notes say those are friendly. We should go talk to it, right? And it like that was like a hilarious counterpoint, right? And everyone's like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's in my notebook. I took it down when I was studying at Candlekeep, um, and I it came up that way. And then as we're going through stuff, I'm just like constantly adding more ridiculously false commentary, which was a fun counterpoint to like like obviously as a DM, you know all the monsters already. So to do everything opposite of what you would or like recall all the details intentionally was a fun way that ChatGPT gave me to play a character that I probably wouldn't have thought of.
That's great. But no, now we're going to be progressing into the second part. And this is going to be the role of transparency. Does AI use impact? AI use, does it impact player trust or expectations? Like, when do you think a DM should inform a player when they use AI? And if so, how should it be? How should this be disclosed?
So I think when I run a session 0, I include taboo topics, and I'm like, if you have an issue with something, like you should bring it up now. And if AI is that something, then it's a conversation piece immediately, right? So I treat it no differently than if something in a campaign or a session goes off the rails. To the extent that if someone feels very strongly about AI, the conversation has to be had at that point. Now the problem is players are becoming more acclimated to using AI, right? Like I gave you the example, like guys, I had a player lose an eye in an adventure, and he changed his Hero Forge token and said, "I want you to change the token for this." I was like, "Dude, it's like it's an eye patch." And he's like, "No, I want to change." And I was like, "All right, fine." But that person is now using, AI images as part of his normal character creation process. It becomes pretty apparent quickly as we look and skim online for images how prevalent it is in terms of character creations. So I don't have a great answer for you. Like, is it taboo? For some people, it may very well be. Um, but it's kind of a challenge to say that nobody at the table can use it. It's one thing to like limit the DM, but to say that the other players can't use it is also a challenge. I think, in my opinion. So I would just be upfront that if it's a taboo subject for you, you should list that as part of your interview process and say, I cannot play with a table that uses AI.
Yeah,
Okay.
agree.
And I was your next in line. Anything to add? Uh, should DMs inform players when they use AI tools, and if so, when and how should this be disclosed?
I don't think well, in terms of like GM prep and stuff like that, I don't think it needs to be disclosed. If you feel heavily about it, you can. But I don't think it changes a player's mind either way if they know that you're using it to help prep and manage lore and stuff like that. So on that side of things, I personally wouldn't do it. I don't see the kind of the I understand for like AI art and like because that is a different topic because of how it's trained and how it takes from other people's like creativity and stuff like that. So I would be upfront about that if a GM is going to be using that for creating scenes or creating tokens or creating their character art, be upfront about that and give the player the option to continue on with the group or respectfully bow out if they have different if they disagree with that, so they have that option. But in terms of like GM prep, I'm not sure it's needed.
And Solomon, what do you think? Anything to add?
And this is my personal opinion on it. I think it should always be made open and transparent if you are using AI in any capacity. I always declare this to my players when I am either actively or about to use AI for something new in the game. I'm like, hey, is this all right with you guys? I also typically expect the same in return. In cases where it's like character art, I'm usually not too concerned because it's very prevalent. It's
Yeah.
you're gonna find it everywhere, and that really goes with my opinion that there should always be transparency on both ends of the table at a D&D game, always, be it taboo or something simple like that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you guys think differently if it's creative word versus creative art?
Creative what versus art?
Word? Like, so if I were to say
Oh.
to ChatGPT,
Hmm.
in the style of token, give me a description of this orc.
Hmm.
The ones with those who feel like it's not a big deal or it is a big deal, like change your opinion on it one way or the other, versus like, as an artist of Larry Elmore, who's also one of my favorite artists, by the way,
Yeah.
create an orc.
Yeah. I guess that's where me and Solomon probably disagree. I don't
Well,
mind like the
we'll see. You give yours first. I'll give mine next. We'll see.
well,
We'll see how we'll see how they compare.
If you guys disagree, we can throw shivs in the center of the circle we have here.
yeah, and we'll
No,
we'll
no.
figure-
There is no need for blood sport.
I
heard
love
sacrifice.
Bloodsport. No, I'm kidding. No, I just going based off of because I don't as a player, I don't really care if a GM is using like Notebook LM to look up their lore or something. Like I don't. You could tell me, but I don't really. Yeah, do what you
Yeah.
need to do. But if you're asking for something in the style of Tolkien, again, I don't really mind. If you feel like you do want to share, I would just be the person that's like, okay, cool. I won't think you're, stealing or but that's just me and everybody feels differently, but yeah.
Nice. That was a great question, though. And Solomon, I hope you.
Is it
That was
shiv time, Solomon?
No,
Not really.
We're not
Not
gonna roll
really.
initiative yet.
Darn it. Okay.
If
So
it is to answer Kevin's question, my opinion on it is I'm not really that bothered because of one main reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting at a table to play a fictional game, which in itself is based off of fantasy writings of the past. And I'm not making money off of this. I'm not running a paid game. I'm not streaming it. I'm not bothered if you want to have the AI basically completely make your backstory for you. My only thing is I just want to know that it was AI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to punish you for that. I'm not going to say you can't play at my table. And I'm not going to really get huffy about it. Because at the end of the day, I'm just here to play and run a game. I'm not going to, be disappointed in you for not taking hours and hours out of your day to write down some crazy backstory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. None of us are making money on this, so it's hard
Mm-mm.
for anyone to be really too upset with it. And it's just for the 6 friends or 5 friends that we have at the table. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and you all have naturally migrated into the next set of the last set of questions. Basically, it was guidelines that should be in place. Even some folks in the chat were talking about content. So the question I'm about to ask you is what kind of guidelines should be in place when using AI? Y'all have just talked to it. The chat has been talking to it. Content should spark ideas. They should serve as a starting point. Um, it should not be treated as a final product. You don't just want to copy and paste without looking at it. It should just be a draft to kind of be to get your starting ideas out. But um, this last group of questions of what guidelines do you think should be in place when using AI? In addition to those,
I think I
and
want to. Okay, go ahead. Finish.
no,
Sorry.
I was if that's you, Kevin, I was about to have you be the first one, and then we'll just go to Kevin, Maya, and Solomon.
I think what I would want to do is I probably will amend my interview process to include the commentary around the taboo subject. So I do label a couple of things like drug use, uh, sexual assault, uh, any of those types of things that I list as an example. I might include AI use as a future one. Most of the players that play at my table have been playing now with me for at least a few months and know my comfort level in using AI. I mean, honestly, they're probably banking on the fact that I can't really do much on the technical side of things. If ChatGPT asked me to do anything programming wise, I probably wouldn't be able to use it at all. But that's probably the disclosure I would use and the amendment process I would use for screening, just to be respectful for the players of the future.
Okay, and Maya, you're next.
I think it should be because I currently don't have them in place. I never thought about this, but this is something now I will think about because it is becoming so prevalent. Probably I would say, AI is becoming very huge. It's becoming smarter and it's gonna get better and advance every year. Um, and so I would say write down your thoughts and notes first. Use it as like an additional tool. Like I have players who are from different countries and maybe their English isn't as good. And so I'll be like, "Hey, yeah, put that into ChatGPT and just say correct my spelling and grammar and sentence structure or something like that." So I would encourage as kind of like a tagline maybe like I want it to be your creative thoughts down first, no matter how that looks. And if you want to use it to kind of fix or maybe generate ideas and help you like kickstart some stuff, then go from there. But like, don't just say, create my backstory and then press enter. You're like, I think I want to play an elf and he's a good fighter. Create an entire backstory for me. Like, I would say at that point, you're not doing not that you're not doing the work, but it's like I don't want to play with AI. I want to play with you, if that makes sense. So I want to play with another human person. So use it as a tool. I would put it like that little line in like the LFG posts or uh, the little new player questionnaires I put out if people want to join my games. Um, but yeah, this is interesting because I haven't thought about that before, but this is probably a good idea going forward.
Yeah, so just keeping collaborative storytelling because even I have
Yeah.
players that two people they're like, hey, we went to high school together. We've been playing D&D for years, but if they create two like wildly unique characters that otherwise never would have crossed paths, and they're like, well, how do you know each other? So it's collaborative.
Yeah,
What about you, Solomon? And
exactly.
then we're gonna end into final thoughts and wrap up.
My thoughts of that usually stick to the use of the AI itself and being careful with it and understanding how to use it without it being a crutch. It's an assistant, it's your editor. That's how I use it anyway. It's
Yeah.
not meant to be the fill in the blank and you use that as your straight answer for everything where it's like
Mhm.
it's the difference between hey, I've written this introduction to this chapter of the story. What do you think about this? What are some ideas for how this could go? And it'll give you like the list of like I'll be like, okay, let's explore that one. And we list it. I said, hey, that's a bit too wild. Let's rewrite this. And I think what's the word for it? Tal told me this. It's recursion, I think is the word.
Mm.
Where you want to build it off of itself and use it to recurse your own creations to improve them over time. Recursive iteration, that's right, you just said it there. Recursive iteration.
Yeah.
You don't want to blindly trust it. You want to look at what it says and make sure that it's not putting too much of itself into it. But that's more of a personal thing with me, is because I'm both stubborn and very prideful when it comes to my writing. So I like to be the one who made it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
when the AI starts going off the rails and is writing the story for me, I'm like, hey, no, bad, don't do that. Like you're supposed to be critiquing me, not doing it for me.
Yeah. It will do that, and you have to be like, "No, that's not what I said," or "That's not what I want," or you have to
Yeah.
edit it and be like, "Don't create dialogue for the players." You're like, "What?" Uh, that's
All
happened a
right.
couple times.
Well, audience members, we have reached final thoughts and wrap up. So I've got one last question for each of you. Um, if it's just one key takeaway or best practice that you've in your use of AI, what's one key takeaway of best practice that you want to share?
So I think the key takeaway that I would highlight would be actually rule zero. So, whenever we talk about what happens at each of our individual tables, whether we use AI or don't use AI, or whether or not we use VTTs or play theater of the mind or
Mhm.
homebrew a rule or customize something, this game basically has an infinite number of spectrum options you can do, whether you use the flanking rule or not. And I'm just pulling things from like the last week that I've heard of people doing different things at the table. The use of AI, in my mind, is no different as long as you do it in a respectful fashion. Just as I would say, I'm sure there are tables out there that pirate a lot of material. And there's nothing wrong with that other than the piracy component of it. But right? And that's the commentary, right? So it's like we can trigger people by saying, "Oh, AI should be able to do everything for us," which would be Watsy's dream and goal. But I don't want to play at that table, and that's all of our choices. Like if we're at a table, just be respectful of other people's tables and how they play, and just accept that not everyone is going to use the same tools, the
Yeah.
same approach, the same edition, or the same rules as everybody else. And that's the table's choice. That's my takeaway.
Yep.
Yeah. Maya, you?
Yeah, that was very well put, Kevin. I guess my thing would be that the key takeaway that I use it for is as that time saver, like little assistant. That's kind of like my second brain. So that's basically what I use, to help me stay consistent and to help me track, past player decisions and callbacks and unresolved plot threads across like multiple sessions and things like that. So at the end of the day, you're using it as a tool to help you stay organized. Simply.
Nice. And lastly, Solomon.
This one might get a little philosophical here. My takeaway is thus: AI is a tool, and so is a knife. How you use it is what determines if it is good or bad, not the tool itself. I know.
No, that
Weird
was well
one.
said.
Mic drop.
I
He's out of
was,
here,
I
you
was,
guys.
Yep.
yeah, I was on the edge of my seat waiting for more, but no, that was well said.
I was waiting for the
Um,
shivs to drop.
But he did. He said a shiv is a tool, and it's how
Yeah.
you use it.
Am I using it to make a turkey sandwich, or am I using it to turn someone into a turkey sandwich?
Well, we are at the bottom of our hour. We got about 5 minutes left. I do want to thank each of you for your time and your inspiration for today.
Yeah.
For the audience, if you want to continue this conversation, we can put it in the AI thread here for alt roll. And if you want, if this YouTube channel, you can follow alt roll tech video tech feed. It'll probably be posted in the next week or so, along with social medias of DM panelists. But without further ado, thank you to each of you. And if the audience could stick around for a post-event survey, it be much appreciated. But thanks for y'all's time.
If I may, I have one last thing to say. Now that Tal brought it up, I want to say it because it's funny and cool, and it's true. A language learning model is chiefly based off of the sum total human knowledge found on the internet, which includes the past and present, which means if
Yep.
you are talking to an AI in any capacity, you're a necromancer.
What if I want to be a necromancer? What if that? Huh? What if that was my life's goal?
Well said.
Congratulations, you're a necromancer now.
Yes.
Bringing families back together.
Yeah. AI.
Already.
Thanks for running this though, and getting
Yeah.
this up and running, Jester.
Oh yeah, sure. And if y'all want to continue the conversation, I just posted in hashtag AI Tech postings. But see y'all out there, and hope y'all roll some nat 20s.